In the House of the Dragon Season 3, Helaena Targaryen, the sister of King Aegon and Aemond, will meet her end when she throws herself from her window in the Red Keep, falling straight onto the spikes below. This has been leaked and confirmed to happen in Season 3 by none other than George R.R. Martin himself, the man who wrote the books on which both Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon are based, when he revealed the showrunner's Season 3 outline. Helena's death, as a direct consequence, will see 5 Targaryen dragons killed, and Rhaenyra being overthrown from the Iron Throne. George R.R. Martin's recent blog post saw him complaining about the show for changing too much from his source material and then spoiling a major upcoming moment. He outright confirmed Helaena dies in Season 3, which he knows because Ryan Condal, the showrunner, wrote it in his Season 3 outline. He revealed that Helaena Targaryen's death would essentially be caused by nothing, saying, "In Ryan's outline for Season 3, Helaena still kills herself, for no particular reason. There's no fresh horror, no triggering event to overwhelm the fragile young queen." So Helaena dies in Season 3 the same way she dies in the book, but as George says, the only difference is that her death makes sense in his books, unlike how it does not, or rather will not, in House of the Dragon. In the book, the impact of the blood and cheese event on Helaena is much greater, and the event itself is much more traumatizing, to the point that Helaena is never the same afterward. Helaena is forced to choose which one of her sons will die. She offers herself, but is refused. The two men then force Helaena to make a decision, which of her two sons would die, Jaehaerys or Maelor. In the end, Helaena reluctantly names her youngest child Prince Maelor, who she deems too young to understand what is happening. In response, the two men kill Prince Jaehaerys instead, while she is forced to watch. In the book, Helaena becomes deeply depressed, slowly sinking into madness. She refuses to eat, bathe, or leave her chambers. Nor would she ever look at her younger son Maelor again, knowing that she had chosen him to die. When King's Landing falls to Rhaenyra, which by the way happens at the beginning of Season 3 in the show, Helaena is taken captive. Her son Maelor, who doesn't exist in the show, is smuggled out of the capital when Rhaenyra takes the city but is later brutally executed at Bitterbridge, and his head is sent to Queen Rhaenyra. All of this makes Helaena throw herself from her window to her death, and it all makes sense in the book. Both her sons died, each death making her more depressed, until the point she couldn't live with it anymore. On the show, as George said himself, this doesn't make sense, however. First of all, Helaena was not much affected by blood and cheese and her son's death, even at one point saying how many other kids die as well. Secondly, her other son Maelor doesn't even exist in the show, whose death is the tipping point for Helaena to throw herself. George R.R. Martin explained how the decision to remove Maelor Targaryen from the story creates a chain reaction of events that will make Helena's death in Season 3 make no sense. George says this: sometime between the initial decision to remove Maelor, a big change was made. The prince's birth was no longer just going to be pushed back to Season 3, he was never going to be born at all. The younger son of Aegon and Helaena would never appear. Most of you know about the butterfly effect. Maelor is a 2-year-old toddler in Fire and Blood, but like our butterfly, he has an impact on the story all out of proportion to his size. The readers among you may recall that when it appears that Rhaenyra and her blacks are about to capture King's Landing, Queen Alicent becomes concerned for the safety of Helena's remaining children and takes steps to save them by smuggling them out of the city. The task is given to 2 knights of the Kingsguard. Sir Vela's Fel is commanded to deliver Princess Jaehaera to the Baratheons at Storm's End, while Maelor is given over to Sir Rickard Thorne to be escorted across the Mander to the protection of the Hightower army on its way to King's Landing. Vela's Fel delivers Jaehaera safely to the Baratheons at Storm's End, but Sir Rickard fares less well. He and Maelor get as far as Bitterbridge, where he is revealed as a Kingsguard in a tavern called the Hog's Head. Once discovered, Sir Rickard fights bravely to protect his young charge and bring him to safety, but he doesn't even make it across the bridge before some crossbows bring him down. Prince Maelor is torn from his arms and then sadly ripped to pieces by the mob fighting over the boy and the huge reward that Rhaenyra has offered for his capture and return. I have no idea what Ryan has planned, if indeed he has planned anything. The butterflies are not done with us yet, however. In the book, when word of Prince Maelor's death and the grisly manner of his passing reaches the Red Keep, that proves to be the thing that drives Queen Helaena to suicide. She could barely stand to look at Maelor, knowing that she chose him to die. And now he is dead in truth, her words having come true. The grief and guilt are too much for her to bear. In Ryan's outline for Season 3, Helaena still kills herself for no particular reason. There is no fresh horror, no triggering event to overwhelm the fragile young queen. And the final butterfly follows soon thereafter. Queen Helaena, a sweet and gentle soul, is much beloved by the small folk of King's Landing. Rhaenyra wasn't, so when rumors began to rise that Helaena did not kill herself, but rather was killed at Rhaenyra's command, the commons are quick to believe them. That night King's Landing rose in bloody riot, as written on page 506 of Fire and Blood. It's the beginning of the end of Rhaenyra's rule over the city, ultimately leading to the storming of the Dragonpit and the rise of the Shepherd's mob that drives Rhaenyra to flee the city and return to Dragonstone and her death. Maelor by himself means little. He's a small child who does not have a line of dialogue, does nothing of consequence but die. But where and when and how, that does matter. Losing Maelor weakened the end of the blood and cheese sequence, but it also cost us the Bitter Bridge scene with all its horror and heroism. It undercut the motivation for Helena's death, and that in turn sent thousands into the streets and alleys, screaming for justice for their murdered queen and killing many Targaryen dragons. Finally, George R.R. Martin warns about what's to come in the upcoming seasons of House of the Dragon, saying it doesn't look the best, warning, and there are larger and more toxic butterflies to come if House of the Dragon goes ahead with some of the changes being contemplated for seasons 3 and 4. Let's hope House of the Dragon listens to its source material and stops making such changes. Now that we know Helaena dies in Season 3 and now that we know her death and the build-up to her death is going to be quite different in the show, let's take a look at exactly how that will happen. Later in Season 3, Helaena, who unlike in the book has been made into a dragon dreamer on the show and can see visions of the future, will start seeing more and more violence as the Targaryen civil war plays out. Helaena will see more and more deaths in her visions. This kind of terror is hard for anyone to see, especially when it's members of your own family and combined with her personal tragedies. She will take her own life. Helaena jumps from the window of her room in Maegor's Holdfast. She dies immediately on the spikes below with her throat impaled, only 21 years old. At the moment of Helena's death, her dragon Dreamfyre suddenly rises, snaps 2 of her chains, and roars loud enough to shake the Dragonpit. What happens next in Season 3 at this point is that false rumors start to spread across King's Landing that Rhaenyra ordered Helena's death, and she was pushed on her orders. This then causes huge riots and leads to a mob attacking and overwhelming the Dragonpit where many of the Targaryen dragons are residing, resulting in the deaths of several dragons. It also leads to the mob overthrowing Rhaenyra from the Iron Throne. Days prior, a man known as the Shepherd begins preaching against the Targaryens and their dragons, claiming that only by cleansing King's Landing of dragons and their masters could the Seven Kingdoms avoid a doom similar to that of Valyria. That night, the small folk of King's Landing begin to tell each other that Helaena has been killed and place the blame at the feet of Queen Rhaenyra, insisting she has killed Helaena because Prince Daemon Targaryen and the Hightower army would soon be at the gates. It's Larry Strong who spreads this false rumor so he and Aegon can return to King's Landing. The rumor of the beloved Helena's murder is quickly believed by the citizens, who have completely turned against Rhaenyra. The night following Helaena Targaryen's death, King's Landing rises in riot. Lord Bartimos Celtigar, a member of Rhaenyra's council, is brutally tortured and killed in the streets of the city. A crowd of 10,000 people fights the Gold Cloaks. Total chaos ensues. As dawn breaks over the city, fires are burning everywhere. As the sun goes down again, even more rioters than the night before pour out into the streets. King's Landing falls that night. At the same time, the Shepherd appears once again and calls upon the large crowd to kill the dragons in the Dragonpit. The crowd responds and storms the Dragonpit, resulting in the deaths of the 4 dragons housed within. Shrykos, unclaimed since the death of Prince Jaehaerys Targaryen, Morgul, the dragon of Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen, Tyrexes, the dragon ridden by Prince Joffrey Valerian, and Dreamfyre, Helena's dragon, unable to fly away as they have been chained. The 4 dragons fight with their horns, claws, teeth, and flame, but eventually they're all killed. That night, Rhaenyra's dragon Syrax also dies, after her son Joffrey Valerian steals the dragon in an attempt to reach the Dragonpit himself and defend it. Joffrey is thrown off the dragon's back and dies, while Syrax is killed by the mob. Rhaenyra Targaryen's loyalists agree that the city is lost and convince her to abandon King's Landing. Rhaenyra, Prince Aegon, and a few loyalists escape from the city the next morning. House of the Dragon Season 3 will see Helaena Targaryen die, which Larry Strong uses to his advantage by spreading rumors of Rhaenyra being responsible for her death, in hopes the small folk will overthrow Rhaenyra so he can bring Aegon back to the Iron Throne. This ultimately leads to 5 Targaryen dragons being killed in King's Landing, and Rhaenyra fleeing the city and abandoning the Iron Throne. Let me know your thoughts about all of this in the comment section down below. For free, you can now listen to the entire audiobook Fire and Blood, on which House of the Dragon is based and which covers the entire Targaryen history, including current and future events of House of the Dragon, for free with a notable trial using our link in the description. And as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you in the next one.